today we're going to be talking about the evolution of input devices, or at least the ones everyone knows. So, would anyone care to tell me what they think their definition for input device is?
It's a device that allows you to send information to the computer so that it can give output to you.
Essentially. I mean, it could be more than just a device in some cases. You know, it could be all sorts of things. Of course, you know, keyboard, mouse, electric xylophone for some reason if you have one. You know, good old classics. Of course, you know, here's a basic timeline of some of the most common input devices that have been used throughout the eras. You know, such as punch cards, typewriters, you know, of course, light pens, trackballs, which, computer mouse, and all that good crap, touchscreen computers. Now, of course, from here we have the punch card, originally invented around 1890, at least as we know it, by Herman Hillerich, or however I want to say it. However, what's pictured here is what would become the IBM 80-column punch card, introduced around 1928. Now, how many of these do you think, on average, someone would have to use in order to compile a basic program? Hundreds, thousands, you'd have whole boxes filled with these things. And just think, you know, each of these had to be manually keyed out on a key punch and take, you know, hours at times to compile these at all. You make one mistake, you have to go back and find the one and keep fixing it. Take a long time. Of course, the next one, the good old-fashioned typewriters. Before we had our keyboards, most computers used typewriters as data entry. Yeah, and to the point where they would eventually just integrate the typewriter into the computer itself in what we know as computer terminals. And of course, many of the features that we're familiar with in keyboards originate with the typewriter, such as the tab and shift key, and of course the QWERTY layout we're all familiar with. Of course, the first modernish keyboards that we know came around about the 80s here with like the IBM Model F, and even then, if you notice, you can't really tell too well probably, but the function keys, instead of being on the top row, is off to the left. We kind of annoying, I guess, if you're all used to the top row nowadays. This is horrible. Light pens. Anyone ever use a light pen before? Okay. Yeah. Anyone ever used a smart board? You know, those little kind of pens? Those are kind of similar to these in a way. Work off a different principle, but they work in a similar way. Here's, I guess, an excerpt of the video that kind of shows one being
and you can see the airplane as I can see it. We have given the computer an eye, this screen. Just to give the computer an eye may seem to be a comparatively simple innovation, but we tend to take our eyes for granted. Vision, in fact, is very important. By just looking at something such as this simple wedge, we can get an enormous amount of information about its size, its shape, and the relationship of its various parts to each other. Now, it would take pages and pages of writing to describe this in accurate detail to somebody else. It would take yards and yards of punch tape to tell the computer about it. But with this invention, that is no longer necessary. All I do is show this to the computer. And I can do that by drawing a simple diagram of it on this phosphorescent screen. I do it with a light pen, which I hold against the screen and mark, first of all, a spot. We start telling the computer about the wedge by drawing it from one perspective. First of all, a vertical line. The light pen follows the cross on the screen. Wherever I move the pen, the line follows. First of all, a triangle, and that's one side of the wedge. Now, by pressing a button, I can rotate this triangle through 90 degrees, so we have another perspective. I draw another line, mark a spot, a second line, mark a third spot.
That's him using my pen. Of course, now, these light pens, of course, worked by disrupting these electron beams that ran behind the screen. And that's, of course, by disrupting it, that's how the screen knew where it was at, and that's how it knew where it was going and how to trace its trajectory. Ooh. Interesting enough, the trackball that's pictured here, it uses a Canadian 5-pin bowling ball, and it's held by air bearings from, I guess, touching this to keep it frictionless and all that. It has a cancel on, keep it sensors, whereas, of course, modern trackballs just have those sensors in it so that when you move it and all that, it just knows where it's going. And of course, now the little mouse here is the prototype of the first mouse here. Made out of wood. Almost looks like if you wanted to, you could probably use it as a pencil sharpener. Now a little backwards here.
So I'm going to open up under here to talk to you about the control techniques, control devices, control dialogue, and control meta language that we're using. Okay, to talk about control devices, we'll use this overhead camera shot where you can see the devices that I'm using. I use 3, and they're not all standard. We have a pointing device called a mouse, a standard keyboard, and a special key set we have here. And we're going to go for a picture down in our laboratory in Menlo Park and pipe it up. That'll show you from another point of view more about how that mouse works. Come in Menlo Park. Okay, there's Don Andrews' hand. And in a second we'll see the screen that he's working and the way the tracking spot moves in conjunction with movements of that mouse. I don't know why we call it a mouse. Sometimes I apologize. It started that way and we never did change it. Alright, as it moves up or down or sideways, so does the tracking spot. And the principles for its operation are quite easy to see. You turn it over, Don. Can you hear me, Don? When you turn it over, we'll see, right? Its principle is that there are 2 wheels that roll on the surface. And since they're right angles at kind of sharp edges, one roll and the other slide in one direction. Each of these wheels controls the potentiometer with the voltage output, sampled by an ADB converter, the numbers taken in by the computer at sample times as to what the horizontal vertical components are to be of where it should put the tracking spot. And as the mouse moves over a surface, then each of those wheels either slides sideways without rolling or rolls an amount that very closely duplicates the particular component of horizontal or vertical in the net motion it makes. Alright, if you take a mouse and move it through some closed trajectory back to exactly the same point, usually the tracking spot will come back to exactly the same place it was on the screen. And for that sense, it wouldn't work well if you're trying to trace maps or other figures, diagrams. But the way we use it continuously and exclusively is to watch the screen and to follow it around. And we use this various device to move that tracking spot. And you're on the tracking spot. You really don't care whether it follows exactly this or not. In fact, we've had it at times where our tracking device, you had to move in an arc like that to make the tracking spot go on a horizontal line. And people adjusted to it and would go like that to go in a straight line and wouldn't even know that they were doing it.
Interesting backstory on that. When that was debuted in 1968, a lot of people who saw this demo or later saw the video of it here would never think that most of the things he presented would catch on. One of the things he presented was actually an early form of what would become the internet, but we're not here to talk about that. Of course, as the mouse continues to evolve, we end up with, the ball mouse, which is very similar to a trackball, in the sense that instead of trackball, of course, being on top, you have the ball of the mouse, and you move around. Now, this picture here is what is considered to be the first ball mouse. I'd like to see if anyone can tell me how you're supposed to hold and use that thing. Like how does it, is it cuspid or from the top, the side? And it has a bad design in that part. Of course, everyone knows the modern mice within these days, optical mice, good old-fashioned optical mice. What would we be without them? Of course, early mice don't have anything else, good old-fashioned infrared technology, line of sight, clear desk, not going to work too well. That means interference is bad. So, of course, that's why all the optical mice use, of course, RF or radio frequency in order to lower the possibility of bad connections. Now, early optical mice, as I said, were using infrared, also had to use special mouse pads, such as this one pictured here, which would have to be used with the Xerox R8010 or 6085. Now, of course, this is a scan of one, so maybe you could actually go and print this out and use it with it. Now, so, does anyone have any questions on anything that's happened so far?
Go back to full screen, please.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. Sorry. Now, as we saw with the left pen earlier, most of the early touchscreens worked with a similar technology, which when you touch the screen breaks the signal, and that's how it knows it's there. And of course, a lot of these were used in most of colleges and whatnot as teaching aids and all that stuff. Now, the first commercial touchscreen computer that we know of is the HP 150. And of course, this bad boy here had a 9-inch CRT screen, ran MS-DOS. We did all sorts of things with it. Only cost a whole $3,000. Nowadays it's like spending almost twice that much, and you might as well be putting a down payment on a car. And of course, here's just a little advertisement they had for it back in the day.
Even though Hewlett-Packard technology has produced a number of firsts, some of you still don't know who we are. Or maybe now you will. Introducing the touchscreen personal computer, the Hewlett-Packard 150. By merely touching the screen, you can find an address, move a paragraph, change a forecast, make a chart. With just your finger, now nothing stands between you and what you can become. Hewlett-Packard personal computers, setting you free.
I thought some of you might get a kick out of that. Of course, most people I say in here, when they think about touchscreen, anything, they probably think of, like the first gen iPod or touch or iPhone or the first Android phone they had, or maybe even the first laptop they had for some reason. They didn't get one that late. So I ask you all, what was one of the first touchscreen, items you all owned?
Smartphone.
I'd say an iPod Mini with the old scroll wheel on it.
Yeah, stay it off, just go whoosh. So anyways, just to be clear, does anyone have any questions on anything? Anyone like to discuss anything, Ron? Okay. Well, if no one has anything to say, that concludes my presentation.